Hello and welcome to a new episode of PTTP Paranormal Uncut. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm sorry, we've been really quiet. So this is the first one that we've done since May. So I'm a little bit nervous at the moment, getting back into the swing of things. But I hope everyone is doing really well. We're really pleased to be back up and running, and hopefully this will continue. But what a show we have in store tonight. We've got a great guest with us from the Netflix show True Haunting, Chris DiCesare. If you haven't seen it, it's the first 3 episodes on Netflix. Erie Hall, really interesting story, loads to pick out from it, and hopefully we'll get some of that from Chris this evening. So what I'm going to do is bring Chris on now and get this show on the road. Hey Chris, how you doing?
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your personal story of what took place when going into college. What I want to do is just say a few hellos to people. So we do have a few people in already. So we've got Colette Loudris. I hope you and Ron are doing well. Thank you for joining. If anyone's got any questions for Chris, feel free to pop it in the chat and we'll try and get those questions answered. But before going into your story, Chris, one thing I wanted to ask you is, your story is really personal, things that you went through, and it actually, sort of went to your friends as well. So when doing the Netflix show, did you have any kind of reservations how they were going to portray your story? Because when watching it, you get that horror effect, don't you? The scenes like in the shower. Did you have reservations on how they were doing it, or was there anything that you were sort of like pushing back a little bit when they were doing the recordings?
Well, it was a great production team. Raw Media, which is part of all 3 media, our studios. Mark Lewis, Kelly Nobe, Melissa McLean, Simon Mills, great people. But I had huge reservations, largely because a channel like Netflix, something like that, like a Hulu, like a HBO, when they put something out there, it goes around the globe. And so they could potentially redefine me in a way I didn't want to happen. And so
Mm.
whenever you take a risk to go on some mass media, you have to also prepare for the fact they might present things in a way that aren't accurate, that change who you are. And so you have to weigh the pros and the cons. So on the good side, Netflix is pretty cool, right? I'll be
Yeah,
able to share my
definitely.
experience with the world, and my friends can be heard for the very first time talking about this. I get to meet people like yourself and go on cool vodcasts and shows. The downside, though, is that they could make you a fool. They could belittle you. They could put words together and chop them together so you sound as though you're insensitive or maybe not a nice person. So, luckily, from my end, although I had extreme reservations, they did a great job with that.
Absolutely. And how much did you have, like, not control wise, but how much of a say did you have with the way they recorded it for you then? Like, were you able to push it back if you didn't like something or it wasn't true to your story?
Well, I don't advocate this as a normal procedure, but I was fairly headstrong in what I wanted to have done. After the first 4 or 5 hours of filming, I was internally irate. I went back to the hotel room and said to myself, "No, we're not doing it this way. This is not happening. I want it to be authentic. Whenever you have any show on television that goes to Hollywood or someplace, they script things a bit to
Mm.
help make their sponsors happy or to do what they have to do. So I was less than pleased. So the following morning for day two, I spoke to the people in charge. Said, "Listen, I'm not happy with this. If we don't make some changes, I'm going to go back home. I'm on the train. I'm going back to home, and that we're done. That's it." No, 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 no. So after that, I didn't mean to be aggressive or mean. It's just it's my life. It's my reputation around the globe. For them,
Yeah.
when they're all talented and successful, it's an opportunity for them to tell a story and get more rewards for their career and things. But for me, it was a little more personal, like you said. And so after that, before each section of interviewing, we would discuss ahead of time what was happening, why they're asking that question, and I was able to push things back. There's always a tendency for all these shows that the person be victimized. But I wasn't sad or lonely. I wasn't in the basement doing Ouija boards. I didn't hate the world. I was happy, healthy, popular, loving my life, which makes it even more odd, right? This thing would happen in this way, correct? So they then
Mm.
shifted a bit, but they wanted to tell everyone's story. Myself, as you saw, and Jeff and Linda and Craig, nice job with that.
Absolutely brilliant. And one question has just popped up. I'll ask it now. So, Chris, had you had any paranormal experience as a child prior to these events happening? Have you had paranormal experiences before?
I had two. One of which I remembered when I was in college. About a year prior, one of my great uncles had passed away. Prior to that, we had gone to church service. And on the way out of that church service, he approached me and everything slowed down. I saw like a mist around his head, and he said, "How are you?" I'm thinking to myself, "What is going on? Does anyone see this? He's talking in slow motion. Anyone? Nobody? No one saw it." So on the way back to the car, I said to my mom and dad, "I'm like, did you guys see Uncle Johnny like talking in slow motion and the white around his head?" They're like, "Mm-hmm." Too many comic books was the response. So I put it away. He was dead 10 days later. He was dead. And
Oh,
so I
wow.
thought maybe somehow he was telling me or someone was telling me. And so I want to be a pallbearer. I wanted to help carry the casket because I felt like after that experience, I was in some way connected with him. That was all I can remember at that point in time, which is compelling, but didn't speak to the haunting of Geneseo at all in terms of
Mm.
its scope or whatever. I found out years after the haunting that my mom said I could like sometimes predict things as a small child. But she wanted me to focus on it because then I'll be an odd kid. Like I would say things like, "Uh-oh, dad fell at work, ripped his pants on his knee." So stop that. And he'd come home that night with a ripped knee on his pants. So, but nothing again. So mom just didn't emphasize it. No one talked about it. So just, I didn't really think about it. So in fact, I thought maybe perhaps it was just coincidence. It didn't match my other experiences in life. I was a marathon runner. I ran marathons, and that's all science. Your carbo loading, right? Your intake, how much water you have, your
Mm.
pacing, temperature, humidity. That's what your opponent's doing. So I was pretty much a structural person. So this whole experience really came out of the blue for me.
Yeah, and going into college, you see at the start of the series that you're excited. You're starting. Was it year two of your college? Was it?
That's right.
um, and straight away you see yourself going and forging friendships very quickly with different people there, which is great. you know, but the start of it was like the voices in the room. You know, can you give a, just in case people haven't seen the show,
Sure.
how did it all start for you? Because we know seeing it, it was some voices, and then it escalated from there, didn't it?
That's fair. I think if I'm being totally candid, I don't always know how things start because I'm not paying attention. But the first thing I noticed for me was that person standing outside the window with the
Okay.
toga party. That was weird. He looked disheveled, dirty. He looked as though he was very angry. I remember telling Jeff, it's like we're dancing on his grave, ironically, right? And he was so threatening that I didn't want to go outside the dorm right for a while because I didn't know maybe he escaped from some asylum. But I didn't think paranormal. I just thought that's a really weird man. About a few days later, I began to hear a voice inside of the room. It was called C2D1. It was the C building of Erie Hall, the second floor, the D quad, 4 quads, and we were the first room in that quad area with 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a living area. That's how that happened. And when I first heard the voice, once again, I thought maybe it was someone playing a joke, prank. We're in college. People drink, they fool around,
Yeah.
they do things. It's not unusual. But I was working on a paper for college. It was the college course was called Ethnocultural Nonverbal Communications. That was the course name. Dr. Harold Battersby, who was from Britain, and he fought and he lived with the Azerbaijanis and World War I. He was an amazing this human being, and I wanted to impress him because we're trying to talk about how your nonverbal appearance can affect communication. So I'm doing all the research and stuff, and so leave me alone. I'm working. So I heard Chris. I'm like, I'm working on something. Door's open. Come on in. Chris, just open the door. It's not locked. I'm here. Chris. I'm like, ugh. So I got up, went to the door, and there's nobody. So I thought, there's people being jerks, right? So I put Paul's headphones on the stereo, put them on.
Yeah.
I played Sammy Hagar, Voice of America. I can't drive 55. Because I figured if I can't hear them, they can't bother me. And then, of course, I heard the voice
In
inside the
the,
phones. I threw them on the ground, and that was bizarre. At that point in time, I realized that something odd was going on. But who knows? That could be a gas leak in the room. It could be drugs in my food. It could be mass hysteria. It could be a prank. It could be hazing. It could be all these things. It wasn't until I saw the thing that
yeah.
I realized, wow, that's not a practical joke. That's something serious, and that it freaked me out because I didn't understand what I was seeing. So it looked a little scary, but the fact that I was seeing it was actually scarier.
No. And then you've also got the scenes where you're at the typewriter and you're typing away, and you either walk away and then go back, and then the first bit it says Chris, like someone's typed out Chris, and then the second part was a load of like X's on there, wasn't there?
Yeah,
You know.
it was fascinating because my concept of ghost was kind of like Casper, la 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 la, or Jesus, I didn't anticipate ghosts would involve themselves in someone's life, for example.
Mm.
And I wondered, how is that possible? Like, if there's a ghost and it's energy, how could it like move my door or push a keyboard button on a typewriter? How could it like make these energy waves and make it cold? So I didn't really understand how that worked in terms of physics or science, but I could see it happening. So I knew that was happening. Yes.
Yeah. And with the type, did you see it physically, like the buttons being pressed, or because what I was going to ask, you don't really see like how it actually happened because of the way the camera angles and everything,
Yes.
or do you think it was something that you did but controlled by spirit? Like looking back at that, do you
No, the
recall
odd thing,
that?
it was fascinating or odd because I didn't type it. I had no reason to type those things. Why would I do that? I mean, in other words,
Mm.
if I spelled the word wrong, I could see that. Oops, that's my mistake. But I'm not going to type things I've noticed in my paper. It's an important project, and there was
Yeah.
no whiteout you could use. There's no like you couldn't go on Google and delete the paragraph. It was on typed out. So any
Yeah.
mistake is severe. Start at the top all the way over again, and that cost you half an hour. So there was no way I would be that insensitive or that careless to be typing things out, realizing what I was doing. I was very important to me to get that 20-page paper done. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's not that was external, not me,
That's crazy, isn't it?
and
To
annoying
see
as
something.
well, and annoying
And,
if I
and like you said, it's on a typewriter as well, so there's
yeah.
no computer functions or anything for it to no. And as as time went on, we see the energy with you started to grow, started to get more stronger, shall we say? And then your friends started to see things. I think it was Paul. He experienced something and then shortly left, didn't he? After. what he experienced. Did this affect your friendships with the people in your college? Like, was it hard to come out and tell them? Because back in the 80s, this sort of thing wasn't very, apart from Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were the main people that to do the paranormal. But a lot of the times, I think back then, would it be fair to say people would say you're going a bit crazy when you're trying to explain what's going on?
Yeah, it was the occult. It's called the occult. It wasn't even crazy. It was bad. It was evil. And
Mm,
so to associate yourself with the occult back then would be very questionable. You could get kicked out of your church, out of your job, out of your relationship. People didn't tolerate that. It was more actually, negative than it was like not believed. There've always been ghost stories around, right? But just to
mm,
involve yourself in that, you have to be very careful. As far as Paul goes, we were tight. We're very good friends. We became best friends right away. They call us the twins. We were the twins. We were inseparable. He was
yeah,
the dark twin, he had dark hair, light twin had light hair, and we went around and we ran together, and it's amazing how quickly that friendship, that bond grew. And it's also amazing in a bad way how quickly the friendship frayed when the ghost stuff started to happen. He was the first person outside of myself to see it. I never described to him what I saw. I didn't want to
mm,
put that in his head. I didn't want him to be influenced. I wanted him in the room to keep us both safe. There's two of us, we're the one. So I didn't tell him anything. And when that night, you could see at the end of episode 1, when we're in the loft and the thing just comes up and the head tilts, that's actually what happened, minus the sound.
yeah,
And when he said he saw that, and I was with him, then I realized one important thing. It wasn't internal. It wasn't in my head. I wasn't hallucinating. It was external. But that was a short-lived happiness because I thought to myself, well, wait a second. That means there's a dead thing in the room. And so my happiness at not being crazy was very short-lived because now there's a dead thing in the room, which actually seemed probably worse. I was very fortunate, in that I always made friends quickly. I've always been a kind of down to earth, friendly person. I just like to laugh at people, so that's always
yeah,
been helpful to me. But the problem is, losing friends hurts as much as getting them is fun, and the stressors began to become too much. It was actually Paul who said, "Go see the priest." It was his idea.
yeah,
He was an atheist. He didn't believe in God, but we had no place else to turn, so it was his idea, and so we went to see Father Charlie. In fact, Paul doesn't appear in the show. He doesn't want to talk about these things after all these years, but Paul and I took Jeff's notes to see the priest to let him know what was going on because I don't want us to talk about it. So if the priest could read Jeff's notes with Paul and I filling in the gaps for his questioning, that's how we would do it. And I thought it was a very smart thing. But he did leave the dorm. There was no like formal like handshake. Years later, a researcher named Alan Lewis found him 9 years after the haunting, in
wow,
1984, at his home. And he said that the ghost said to him, "Leave Chris alone," twice. And that there'd be no third time. He'd get out of there real quick. The ghost had his eyes on me. Paul said he would see this thing over my head at night floating, like looking at me over my head, like this type of energy over my head. And he didn't tell me that because he was afraid it would freak me out. And I found over the years that a lot of people didn't tell me things because they knew it would get me into a bad place. So they're trying
yeah.
to protect me for whatever this was. And I thank him for that. Listen, people will say, "Where is Paul? What kind of friend is he to leave you?" He was a good friend. I loved our friendship together. He had the luxury of living an hour from the college. He can go home. He can leave. And he
Yeah.
did so. I might have too. So no hard feelings. I think Paul did the right thing for him. I hope I can talk to him again one day, but I consider him a friend to this day.
But it's got to be quite a scary experience, like going into something if you've not experienced anything like it before,
Yep.
and how the present seemed very like you said, angry, evil, and what was happening. I think a lot of people, their first instinct will go somewhere where they feel more safe, wouldn't they? So
Yes.
it's understandable. How did you like? I know, like, you loved your running, you love long distance running, and that was a way that you channeled yourself, to get away from it all. But was it hard for you to, keep that positive vibe, like going through all that? How did you manage without completely breaking down, shall we say?
Yeah, well, in the initial stages of the haunting, I kept running it early on because it gave me an escape from the environment. I could go out with
Yeah,
the trees and the birds and the clouds and just free myself from the place that's supposed to be my sanctuary, my room, which was not. However, as the haunting progressed, I really couldn't sleep much. It was always talking and moving things and touching my leg and looking at my face and just horrible, horrible things. You see, there's and I think it's episode 2 where the actor playing me is sleeping on a couch by the vending machines. I
Yeah.
would do that because the vending machines would have inside them a refrigeration unit that would keep the drinks cold. And every 15 minutes, it would kick on to chill the drinks. And that was my alarm clock. Every 15 minutes, boom, I wake up to make sure I was okay. It wasn't around me. So that was the survival technique that I used to do that. But of course, if you're sleeping 15 minutes at a time, if you're sleeping 3 hours a night, you can't exercise. You're just too exhausted. And so I found myself unable to run, and I lost that escape as well.
Wow. Wow. And with on the same theme as the running, you eventually found out that the route that you were taking majority of the time was passing a Pacific tree. Do you think that was just coincidence, or do you think that was spirit led that you would happen to pass the tree where this spirit was killed? I believe, is that right?
Well, that tree they call it now the torture tree.
That's the one.
I can tell you that I had no idea what that tree was. It's a little bit off the road, so you can't quite see it from when I was running anyway. I didn't notice it.
Mm.
And that was at the 8-mile mark of my run. So about 8 miles, I'm not paying attention to the trees or I'm trying to get up that hill back to the college. I always do in my head these time trials to beat my time. So I knew there were trees there, but I never really focused on that one tree. That's a fact in that. But I did go by that tree probably 2-3 times a week. I suffered one injury in my college career, and it did happen right near that tree, ironically. So yeah, I didn't know the history of that. I didn't know how that played out. I didn't know what that was. Jeff had suspected early on that perhaps I had picked something up on one of my long runs. People thought maybe the Warrens brought it. Maybe he had killed himself in that room. Maybe it tested my abilities. Maybe I picked it up on a long run. There were all these theories, so we didn't know what was happening. And one of the things Jeff said was, I think maybe one of your long runs, maybe it attached to you and came back. And looking back years later, I think that he was spot on with that assessment.
And so you started doing experiments to communicate with the spirit that you later called Tommy. Is that correct? You called him Tommy. And I think it was Jeff that had the idea to go into the room, hold your hands out, and try and speak. Can you talk us through that process and what you actually felt in those moments?
That's fast. If you look above my head on this side, where I go this way, that's the picture of the skeleton right there.
Okay.
And beside it, there are 2 Spanish monk bookends. That's Ed Lorraine Warren's library.
Oh, okay.
And the poster right here is that Jeff pulled off the wall at the college announcing the Warrens coming to the college to speak that night. So that's the poster he showed me. So he went. So I try to save things that are kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was Jeff's idea to try to investigate these things. Initially, he was taking a writing class, and he wanted to write something that would be kind of cool to give his professor, and he didn't know what to write. As soon as I came running next door going, "Oh my gosh, there's a ghost," he thought, "Aha, I can write about something." He had no idea at the time this was going to be really happening this way. It was just convenient. But once we got the photographs and things, he realized, my gosh, this is something extraordinary happening, and he wanted to see what it could be and what it meant. It was his idea to go into the room to get pictures of the ghost. I didn't want to do it. I don't want to see it again. But he knew I had talked to the priest. He knew Father Trotter would be there in a few days to bless the room. He's afraid maybe it'd go away. So before the priest sent the ghost away, he wanted to get evidence of it existing. I thought, oh, that's okay, fine, we did that. And so we went into the room, and one of the things he did, he brought with him a fish tank thermometer, a floating thermometer, a fish tank. He put it on the table. This way we could see the temperature. And right away, the temperature dropped dramatically. My father said the same thing when he visited that evening. If you'd see your breath in the room, you see your breath, but the heat was on, windows were closed. It was 65 degrees. Like, how could that be possible? But you would see your breath. And he would record things as things would happen. And I remember he said to me, "Do me a favor, just go on your knees, put your hands out." I'm like, what? What is this? Right? They said this, this is stupid, Jeff. Like, what is this dumb? But he said, no, he saw us on television, so put the hands out to summon this thing. And I faced the closet area where I had sensed maybe it would have been. And sure enough, within a minute or two, the closet door shook, it unlatched and opened, and I saw this face, this thing in the closet, and I'm like, oh my God, that's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to go in there, nothing happens, we go get some pizza. I'm not supposed to be actually having this happen. I just want to make Jeff happy temporarily. And the gust of wind came out. My sleeves are being blown back. The cardboard behind me is bending. I'm like, Jeff, take the picture. Take the picture. Now, I had hoped to take a picture of the ghost, but he didn't see the ghost. He saw the reaction on me and the environment. He saw everything moving around. He turned the camera to me. That's that picture of my hands out like that with everything being shown moving around me, like, which is also compelling, right? So he got me with the effects of the haunting, not the ghost. And it went right through my body. It felt like everything froze, then unfroze. Like if you're in a hot summer day and you're working in the yard, you have a cold glass of water, right, or some iced tea. You can feel it go down your throat. My whole body like froze like that. I could feel it, and then unfroze. That's it, I'm out. He goes, wait. Where's the ghost? How do I see the ghost? So I stood up. I looked, and I could see the ghost like I see you above my bed in the loft. There's the ghost. Where, Chris? The dead thing is the ghost. I don't see it. Jeff, the dead thing, look at us. Let's take his picture. He's right there. And he goes, I don't see it. So he said to me, again, very smart, if you see it, take my camera, take the picture if you see it. So I said, okay. I raised this camera up. It was a Minolta 5mm camera. And I went, and I ran. And that's the picture that when it was developed, we didn't have any cell phones back then. Weeks later, we could see on there all the human bones of a skeleton right there. But he did see the effects of things. For example, when the ghost went past me, I had a stuffed animal. It's a pickle. It's right there. And that hung from my ceiling. And that would start to move, like sway, like visibly sway when the thing went past it. So he knew something was in the room. He just couldn't see it, but I could see it. So that's why I took that photograph. So pretty compelling, right? But I don't want it. I told them burn the picture because for me, Nando, I wasn't investigating. I was surviving. If you think the person you love the most in the world is cheating on you, which would be heartbreaking, right? You could hire someone to follow them around and get evidence, like a detective, a private eye. But if they come back next week and they have this envelope, plop it in front of you, what's that? There's your evidence. Oh, I don't know if I want to see the person I love with my friend or on my bed or smiling, or that's awful painful. So for me, I didn't want to see any of the photographs that people ask about today. I would just burn them. Luckily, he did not burn them. But for me, like I said, I just wanted to end. And any reminder of it was negative. Same thing with the AVPs we captured. I wanted them destroyed. I don't want anything to be shown. But I'm happy that they do exist.
Yeah. And one of the questions Sarah's asked, so at the time we see that you're sleep deprived, you're not getting enough sleep, it's affecting you in different ways. Do you feel that this entity or this spirit was feeding off you becoming more like mentally drained, like in a depressive way? Do you feel that made this entity stronger to do what he was doing to you?
I want to springboard. Lorraine Warren suggested that if there's something in the room, turn the lights off. She suggested that ghosts and spirits feed off of energy, electricity. So turn the lights off, turn clocks off. Nothing to feed on, right? It's hard for them to remain manifest or in that physical form. I couldn't. I was too scared. I had to keep every single thing on. So I didn't always know where to go or what to do, but I did know that it wanted me. It constantly called my name. Beth heard it call my name. Linda heard it call my name. Craig's roommate heard it call it only called my name. It was focused entirely on me. And I made a joke about that stuffed animal, the pickle over there, right?
Yeah.
At that time, to make extra money, I was getting jobs as a naked model, a figure model for the art class and photographers because I could buy more things that way. And so that was a joke for that. I had no problem posing naked in front of artist photographers, but when that thing looked at me, it was different. I covered my body up. I couldn't be naked around it because it was different. It seemed to want to possess me in some way, like have my legs. It's hard for me to express because I don't think that way as a human being, but it definitely was focused on trying to get control of me, for sure. I don't want to give spoiler alerts, but I think that in its mind, if it had my body back when it was killed, it wouldn't have gotten killed. In other words, I think he didn't run fast enough to escape his fate. I think in me, he saw not just a connection with family. Also, if he had because at the time I was a nationally ranked runner, if he had my legs, for sure, he'd be alive. And I think he was working through his own emotions and history.
I think that was one of Jeff's theories as well, wasn't it? About the running and your stamina that you had and how fast you were, because you would run quite a distance in a short space of time.
Yes.
So, and he even felt that that could be something linked because he was running away from being killed, and maybe that was the attachment there.
Yes.
But then, you know, there was other events that took place that your friends were involved. It wasn't. I don't believe it was Beth, where you found her collapsed on the floor, didn't
Yes.
you?
Yes.
You know, do you think the spirit was doing this to your friends because it wanted to detach you from like a social life? And like, I know it sounds like we're talking about a scene from a movie, like a real horror movie, but
Well,
where
it is
it
now.
wanted you
Right.
to
Yes.
where it wanted you to be like alienated from everyone else so it could have full control of you.
I think it's worse than that. I think what you say is powerful. I think it's worse than that. I don't think it cared about me. I think it cared what it wanted. It wanted me, not for me to
Mm,
be happy, for it to be happy. So the priest blesses the room. My room is safe now. There's no more breezes, no more flashes, no more shadows, no, right? But it attacks my friends. What are they going to do? They're going to call me to help them. So it tricks, it goes around the blessing and says, huh, get your friends then. Come over to me, talk to me. So he was pulling the strings. It was more vicious and scary because he was hurting my friends to bring me to him.
yeah.
It's more negative than just me having no friends. It's just he doesn't care about my friends. He just wants me. For some reason, this thing felt I could give him the answers he wanted.
Wow, that's
It was scary. It was very
it,
scary. You
it
know,
is it is scary to think, you know, of, you know, going through that. You go from one minute you're in excited to go to college, you know,
exactly.
in your dorm, meet new people, and then it's just totally flipped over. And you, like you said, you're trying to survive every day as it comes. And
No, no.
it,
Kate Bush rang up the hill. You had Peter Gabriel, Eurythmics, you had Genesis, you had Rolling Stones, you had David Bowie. I mean, it was the age of MTV. Life was incredible. There was no COVID yet. AIDS hasn't really hit much yet. There's no terrorism like we have today yet.
mm,
It's just for some reason it seemed like a nice time to be alive, you know. And I was young and healthy and meeting people, and I just at the top of my game when nothing can go wrong. This unusual thing happens and just pushes itself into my life, almost like how cancer strikes unavoidably sometimes, or
yeah.
or depression or anxiety, or when you're fired. Or I mean, life happens sometimes, and you don't want it to happen, but it does. You have to have a choice to either face it or collapse. I wanted to face it and not collapse.
Yeah, and this is sort of leads to the question that Abby's just asked. She said, "How did you get rid of the spirit, or is it still with you?" So we know that you plucked up the courage, but I think it was a bit of a scene from with another student in the college. You went into the bathroom, didn't you, the restroom, and you had like a sort of a heart to heart where he sort of gave you that motivation. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, one of the people, one of my dorm mates at college was named Craig Norris. He actually grew up on a hippie commune back in the 70s with, free this, free that. And my upbringing was very different. I was very, very conservative, traditional, with little boxes and things. So we didn't always have the same belief systems. But we both loved to run. We're both happy people, and we lived in the same place. And so we crossed time to time, cross areas. After toward the end of the haunting, I had this horrible nightmare. I came in all dressed into the bathroom full of sweat, and Craig said to me, "Look, you got to do something about this. I mean, people are getting hurt. You can't keep running for this. You got to face it." Like, yeah, I know, but he goes, "Well, you should do that." And so he challenged me to face it. And I just had the marks on my back from the shower attacks. I was still a little scared
Yeah.
about that. And he's like, "Said, just go talk to it." I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna try." I said, "But if I don't come out of that room, tell my parents this is my choice. I'm not being controlled. I'm not addled. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do." And that was a tough thing to have to do. And Jeff has always told me, Jeff said, if you do talk to it at some point in time, don't ask open-ended questions. Don't say things like, how do you feel? Just ask questions that are precise. Like, where are you from? What is your name? So we can get more details. So when I finally did actually have a chance to talk to this thing, I did ask those questions. I asked, where are you from? And he said, Danville. I said, why are you here? And he said, made a mistake. So much pain. And it was tough for me because I wanted to hate this thing. It had hurt my
Mm.
friends, and my scholarship was in jeopardy. I was about to fail out of college. I'd been attacked by this thing. But man, when I talked to it face to face and looked in its eyes, oh, frustrating. I couldn't help but feel compassion, and it seemed like his suffering was actually worse than mine, and which is hard to understand. And that's why I decided to try to then say things to it that might be able to be positive, protective for it to apply to its own fakes. I said, you can't stay here. You've been calling my name for months. People are getting hurt. This is not working. I don't know what you want from me, but all I can do is this. I can tell you this, and that is find rest. You need to believe that someone still loves you, that whatever you did can be forgiven, and that there's a place for you, but you just can't stay here. You got to go. That's what I actually said to the thing. And they put that scene outdoors by the torture tree in the show because people who watched it, the screeners said you're in the room too many times, but it actually happened in my room. I broke the blessing and invited him in there, and I did that butt ass naked in my birthday suit just because Craig said no power ties, no status, just the way you're born. So it was me and my back scratches into that place. I went. It seems crazy looking back, but at that moment, it seemed like the best answer, and it seemed to have worked. After I told it that, I said, I'm counting to 10. When I get to 10, you can't be here anymore. And I just closed my eyes and I counted, and I got to 10 and took a breath, and I didn't see it. I waited a few days. I waited, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I didn't say anything. And then people started saying things like, hey, I have to have the ghost. Is the ghost around? Have you seen the ghost? It got kind of quiet. And I told Jeff what I had done. And that's when he wrote down that the ghost boy had put the soul to rest. That's how the legend began to grow out from beyond that room.
And in that moment when you counted to 10, you told the spirit what you wanted to tell it. Did you feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders at that moment as well? Like you felt a release?
No, because I was nervous it would attack me still. It already attacked me before. I was still bleeding on my back. So I was petrified. I thought, this is dumb. Why would I close my eyes to this vicious creature that attacked me and my friends? But at the same time, I thought, you know what? I just show strength. I just show strength and courage. So if I go in there, just me, nothing on me, with the back scratches still fresh in my back, it knows I'm not afraid. Or at least it thinks I'm not afraid, even though I was, right? I want to project strength and confidence. That's all you can really do in that moment. And that's what I did. And so I was relieved. At first, when I opened my eyes, it wasn't there. I didn't want to believe it. Like, okay, it's not here now, but watch tonight, it'll show up. I was relieved by day 3 or 4 when I realized, okay, I have enough evidence to suggest now that it did seem to work, at least for some period of time. Success, check the box, try to move on.
Wow, that's amazing. And before you had that encounter or with the spirit, you do see that you have the attack in the shower as well.
Yeah.
And you also turn to the last person that you can think of turning to was your dad, because he was the one person that you tried to avoid throughout this whole experience, wasn't it? How was that for you to reach out for your dad? What was going through your mind when you thought you're at the end of the road, you've got nowhere else to turn to, and then you go to your dad?
It was, I felt embarrassed, ashamed, horrified, childlike to be calling my dad for help. By that time, I was a teenager. I was taller than him. I ran faster than him. I was a grown man by that point in time, but something about having a dad, the guy who taught you how to throw a baseball, how to win or lose with respect, how to spell things, how to do chores around the house, how to treat women the right way. I always looked up to my dad, always. And I didn't want him to think that he had failed in raising me. I didn't want him to feel as though I was broken and he had to always worry about me his whole life. And so, but I had to do something because at that point in time, there are physical attacks. I'm failing school. Everything's about to collapse. And, he didn't know what to think. What are you talking about? Because we didn't ever discuss these things. But he knew I never asked for help. For me to ask for help means something was very bad. So he didn't know if it was like hazing, like I told you, or like a fraternity prank or drug abuse, but he knew his son needed him. He made that 5-hour trip in 4 hours. And a funny thing I could add, my sister was angry at me because of that. I never knew why. It was her prom night, her prom. My dad forgot to bring her to her prom because he came to me at college that shows you how seriously he took my one call for help. Because, I ran marathons on my own, 26 miles out there. He raised me to be independent, a problem solver. But that whole thing just was not working. Back to my roots. He was the guy I teach with the stick saying, you can do this, run. he always believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I might have thought he was aggressive sometimes or strict, but looking back, he cared. He could have ignored
Um,
me. He could have not helped in any way. But as a parent, there's no book about parenting. He
no,
chose to
definitely
help
not.
me.
It's one of the hardest jobs that you ever come across, being a parent, isn't it?
But he stayed with
It's
the family. He stayed with the family. Both my parents loved each other. They raised us. We always had food on the table, no matter what, even in hard times. We
mm,
always had clothes to wear to school. They made sure of that. There were two jobs sometimes. They made sure we had what we needed to succeed, good parents. So it was embarrassing to reach out to him, but he came up. He real quick and he said, "My God, he lost so much weight because
mm,
I wasn't eating or sleeping. I was gone." He knew something was really bad. He said to me, I never forget the words. He said to me, "You go to sleep. Whatever is here comes through me." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, that's so cool." I felt like I just love the fact that he loved me enough, even as grown men, to put himself on the line that way. In the morning, he didn't say anything. He just, "Let's go for a run." We just went for a run. That's how that
yeah,
happened. And I was very proud. People sometimes criticize him. "He didn't help you. He left. What's that about?" And I tell people, listen, some people have lost their dad already. They have no dad. I never had a dad before. I had a dad. I was lucky. Some people hate their dad. The dad beats them or does horrible things to the mom. I didn't have that. And the fact he
mm,
loved me enough to stop everything and come see me, that's a good dad. Don't talk bad about him. And I always wanted him to be proud of me. And when the Netflix show starts, in the very beginning of episode 1, he says the words, "His son you can be proud of." And I'll always have that gift now my whole life. He's 82 years old, my father. And so, but
wow,
I will always have the ability to see his face and hear his voice and know I did okay by him. It's
wow,
a
that's
blessing.
brilliant. It just shows people are quick to make comments, but they never know the true, the foundation of a family setting. That I
Yeah.
think they just like to be horrible sometimes. But you see your dad, like, he come to you as quick as he could.
Yeah.
Um, what was your dad's like sort of feelings when it come to things like this sort of paranormal stuff? Like, prior to you telling him what had happened, was he a believer? Was it quite hard to go into depth with him? Because we see him stay in your dorm that night. You slept. I think that was one of the first nights you were able to sleep
Yeah. That's true.
properly, and your dad sort of experienced something. Do you want to just give us a bit of a background with how the interaction with you and him, and then him being in your room for that night?
With your audience, your listeners or viewers who tend to be intrigued by spirituality and ghosts and the paranormal, this will sound very odd. My father did not like talking about it, didn't want to talk about it, and would not talk about it. The first time he told me what happened in that room was 2012.
Wow.
It took 27 years for him to say anything about it. Because at that point in time, I was thinking about maybe going public and sharing with people. At that point, I mean, he said what he had seen a little bit. It wasn't until 2023, 3 years ago. So you're talking 38 years later. He explained in detail to me what he felt, what he saw, what he sensed, what he. It took forever because he didn't want to talk about it. However, when I told him we're making this show for Netflix, and he realized that we see by 9, 10 million people, he wanted to back me up. He didn't really want to talk about it, but I'm his son. He wants to
Mm.
make sure that people knew there was something there. And he, as an absolute naysayer to these things, that's garbage. He said it was there and it happened. So he wanted to back me up again. So once again, that's what a good dad does. You back up your child when they need the support when they ask for that. And so again, I can only say good things about Jeff, Linda, Craig, Father Charlie, my dad, all those folks who helped us get us through those moments. I can say good things about. I could never be angry at them. And it's not going to happen because when everything went wrong, at my lowest, I had nothing to offer them. They were still my friends. They still cared for me and helped me out, and I can never forget that. That's a blessing.
I think people need to realize people react differently to
Yep.
situations, and especially if you come from a back like your dad. He didn't talk about that sort of thing. He wouldn't, but when you go through it, it affects them just as much as it affects you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Um, but and throughout the show, you see that Linda, she was very comforting towards you. Trying to open up to you as well. But it was your dad, like that scene with your dad, that you can see it. You found it hard to speak to him, but it didn't matter to him. Like,
No.
you can see it quite clearly, and that was the question. Was that truthful to the actual situation with you and him? Because he come to you, he sat in the room, he
Yes,
sat up most of the night while you slept
the
on that
whole
top,
night.
like
The
the
whole
bunk
night. He didn't
bit.
sleep a wink. He didn't sleep a single wink. He didn't sleep. In the morning, he said, "How you feeling?" I'm like, "Good." He goes, let's go for a run."
And then
And
that's when you come across the gravestone, wasn't it, as well?
I wish that
Uh,
was the case. That isn't. They were
oh,
going to
okay, sorry.
have a 3 hour program, 6 episodes, but
Hmm.
the other episode came up like in an hour, and you can't have one be an hour and be 3 hours. It doesn't balance properly. So they cut hours in half. So they have to compress everything and compress like that. My father always did trip over things in the forest. That's what he did. And he did go running through that thing, and it did happen, but just years later. That's how that goes on. But it's I'm okay with all of that because I wasn't trying to prove. I was trying to survive. If someone had told me at 17 years of age this happened, I wouldn't believe them. It's natural not to believe that. That's silly. But when it
Hmm.
happens to you, back in 2001, when we had a terrorist attack here in the States and the Twin Towers fell and the Pentagon,
Yeah.
it was a tough time. Some of my friends cried. They cried because why is the world so evil? Why would they attack innocent people? What kind of God would allow this to happen? So my friends didn't talk about it. So my friends enlisted into the service and went to fight in Afghanistan and places like that. So you're saying different reactions is true. We all react differently to stress. And my friends who signed up very nobly, very bravely to go fight in that theater in the poppy fields and stuff in the caves of Afghanistan, it wasn't a movie. There was no flag waving and heroes and people, it's kids with bombs blowing up and no communication and illness. And I always tell people, be careful what you ask for. I mean, life isn't scripted like the movies are. And
Hmm.
people say, well, that must be fascinating. You see this full-bodied apparition, you got this picture. I thought we were going to die every day. So I didn't really go through going, oh, put this on Facebook. It didn't work that way. It was just, I got to stop this somehow. And so I don't judge people. I don't judge their actions because each of us has to do what we need to do to survive each day. If someone's being mean to someone, I don't like that. I think people are being mean, but people take their own paths. Sometimes that means disclosure. Sometimes it means keeping things inside until you're ready and never happens. So I think it's fair to say. I think you're right in the point in that.
Definitely. And I know there was a number of theories with what Jeff said, why he thinks the spirit was linked to you. But looking back on it now, you've grown, you've developed, you've done a lot in the paranormal with Speak Now. Have you got your own thoughts now, looking back, why this spirit was attached to you, what you think it is,
Yeah,
or what it was?
I think there is always a danger in wanting to prove our point. In other words, if we're going some investigation someplace, we have a theory. We look for things that fit that theory. I think it's a mistake. I think it's best to see where the data leads you and to see what actually the truth is, even if we're wrong initially. I think it's very important, right, to be objective on those things.
Yeah.
Initially, I let people talk around me. Here's what Beth said. Here's what Linda, Jeff felt this, Paul said. I didn't weigh in on that. I said, that's interesting. I just tried to weigh things out because I didn't really know. And because I'm seeing it, they might think that my reaction is the right one, and it might not have been. So that's very quiet. And for years, when I first even started talking about this 10 years ago, I asked people like John Zaffis, Haunted Collector, people like that, people on the TV shows and famous people like Joe Chin on GHI, what they thought about these things. Because I didn't know what's their opinion, because they do this for really a living.
Yeah.
Looking back now, it's been 41 years. My best guess on this is that this thing, this ghost, was an unrested spirit confused by what lack of rest, confused by its death. Why would that happen? Unable to understand in what world this could be possible, not knowing how to communicate, not understanding it was dead or alive in some limbo. And I really think in me, by chance perhaps, or because of a gift, because of opportunity, luck, family connections, whatever the case may be, he thought that I could help him. And guess what? It seems like he was right. So good on him.
Fair enough. And you're saying this is now 40 years on,
Yeah.
since all that happened. Is it still like, I know you do a lot of public speaking about it, but the emotions of what you went through, is that still a part of you? Have you learned to be able to bury that now and leave that in the past? Or do you ever have those dreams still about being back in college? Because a lot of people say when you go through like a traumatic experience, it's always a part of you, really. And
Yeah.
sometimes you dream. Do you ever have moments where you have those dreams still, or something flashes back at you?
Yeah, I think that if you lose a child, you never forget that child. You never get over the loss of that child, although you move on and find other ways to make yourself happy. I think in much the same way I lost myself back there. I think I lost who I was, my goals, my dreams. But in the process of that losing, I gained friends and hope and skill sets and a more positive, focused lens to help others going through. I was had PTSD and have PTSD. I still sleep with a light on every night against Lorraine Warren's advice. I know it hasn't happened in 41 years, but it happened once before out of the blue. My mind tells me that that means that it could happen again out of the blue. And this time I want to be ready for it. So I remember in 1983, I ran a road race, a foot race in Middletown, New York, and they lined us up at the start. And I wanted to win that race because I was a competitive runner. And the starter had a pistol. And he went bang, and 8 people dropped on the road. They just fell on the ground. They got back from Vietnam in the war. I thought, oh my gosh. Every time they hear a gunshot now, they drop to stay alive. I thought, wow, they will never recover from that because their body taught them if they don't do that, they're dead. So not to the same degree or the same value, but for me, the same thing. When the wind blows at night, there's a rattling. When I hear a whisper of something on the street, I hear a door close. Instinctively, unhealthily, it brings me right back to those days of being a young man in that college. I noticed Lourdes is making these very valuable comments in the chat room. Hi, Lourdes. She understands how that works. Some of us have had these experiences where it does change you and you choose how you react to them, but it becomes a part of how you think. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm not bemoaning my fate. I'm happy to be here talking with you and sharing this amazing experience. But it's what you make of it, right? When you fall in love, if you fall in love, what is the marriage rate for divorce? 50%? It's a coin toss, right? The marriage lasts. Coin toss. Why bother again? You have one girlfriend, 2 girlfriends. I mean, more heartache. What I gotta share now? I gotta listen to what somebody says about their opinion. It's easier just to be by yourself. But there's a part of us that wants to be loved, that wants to be part of something. When they laugh, you laugh. It feels good that you like being near them. And so in the hopes of finding someone that loves us for who we are, we take risks. And so that's what we do every day with our lives, right? We get in our automobile to go to work. It could be a car crash that day. Doesn't stop us. We still live our lives best we can, correct? And so for me, with the whole ghost episode, that's what I do. Having it on Netflix and being watched around the globe, I get a lot more information now. People reach out to me from Brazil, Portugal, the Philippines. It's amazing. Every day I'm talking to somebody cool across the globe, and I feel thankful I can make them understand that they're not alone, that you can survive these things. But the truth is, I wish it never happened.
I think you can relate that to a lot of different situations. That part, what you just said,
Yeah.
We hear so many times that you can turn a negative into a positive, but it all draws back deep down. I think it always goes back. You wish it never happened to you. It's hard, isn't it? Because of everything you've had to go through, and then trying to build yourself after all that event. It must have been mentally draining for you to try and build yourself back up. With that said, with college, did you complete college? Did you go on like how after that last experience with this spirit? Did you complete college? Was it all back to normal, or was it always a bit of a struggle for you?
One thing that Jeff often talks about is the fact that by the time the haunting ended, we had maybe 10 days after the semester. We had 10 days. I had 10 days. Hi, Ted. I had 10 days to do all my work for the semester. And he said I just did paper after paper. He was amazed that I did that and I actually ended up passing that semester. And I went back the following year. I was a 3-year student. I took this examination for 6 hours, and I did so good in the examination that I got my first year of college for free. Like all the freshman courses free, just all the credits like that. So I began my first year as a sophomore. My second year as a junior, my third year, I was a senior. So the following year, Jeff and I went back to Geneseo, but we lived in a dormitory as far away as you can get from Erie Hall, the farthest one away. We never went back there. I didn't want to look in the window and maybe see it there looking for me, So I didn't go back for 25 years. But yes, we both did graduate. We both had careers. We both have families. It's been a nice life considering all the craziness, like I said, I'm very thankful. I just saw Ted pop on and say hello. Ted lives in upstate New York. He ran the rest of Parafest for many, many years. A real good person. He's old school. He does old school style investigation. He's a salt of the earth. I get to meet people like that because of what happened to me, because they say, hey, come talk about what happened. And I think that's healthy for everybody. And I'm very appreciative.
Brilliant. Sarah Guy's just asked, here we go. Do you find yourself being extra cautious about things now?
Yes. Yeah. I'm like Frankenstein. Fire bad. Yes. One of the challenges that I have, a challenge, is that I'm often invited to go to events and speak at the events. And oftentimes the organizer will pay my hotel fare, my transportation. They'll give me an appearance fee, or it'd be real nice. They treat me like royalty. It's beautiful. But they often expect me then to go on a ghost investigation. That's part of the deal, because the ghost investigations, people pay for those. They add the revenue. I'm drawing people in there in exchange for my room and board, so to speak, my fee. It's expected I will do these investigations. I don't like doing that, but I can't say no, obviously, because I'm not being polite or appropriate. So I tend to go to the haunted location, get a place near the entrance, and then point to things. It's like, go over there, go over there, go there. This way I keep myself free from any attachments going home, and still lend some, good storytelling advice and things that way. It's interesting because I'm just here because of what happened. I didn't want it to happen. And I'm here because my friends pushed me through. I didn't want to be pushed through. I'm here because people wanted to share my story. I didn't want to share my story. I'm the big mistake. I'm an absolute accident. But people believed in me and pushed me forward, and here I am. So it's just a series of unexpected events. It's really bizarre. I never shaved my head, put a black shirt on, crossed my arms at a group. I never did that stuff. I just, I'm just some guy. But I've been blessed with an opportunity to share what I saw. And people talk about faith a lot. Having faith in people and humanity and the afterlife. And faith is that you believe without seeing. I saw life after death. I don't have faith, good or bad. It's not there. I know something is after this. That's a weird thing to think about, right? So when you go through something like that, you think about life and death differently, I think, because it just rewires your whole thought process. Sometimes parents complain about their kids. Oh, my kid is the worst. Wish I never had him. Whoa, 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 whoa. Go easy. Right now, some mom and dad are losing their kid to cancer in some ward down the street. Yeah. Begging God for one more day to hug them and see their eyes when they close. So I caution people, judge slower, embrace quicker, because in the end, nothing matters but our shared continuality. Just we're going to try to make things better for people that come after us, and I really believe that 100%.
Brilliant. I wanted to touch on the family. So you've gone on you went through this before you had a family. Yeah. The door knocks and Netflix documentary, they want to do it. What was your family's reaction about when you bought it? Because I'm sure you must have had that discussion, like, yeah, this is what's been brought forward. Yep. This is the cards on the table. What do you guys think? What were their initial thoughts about you doing this documentary?
It's very, yeah. I've never asked that question before. It's perfect. My wife said, all right, if you think you want to do that, okay, taking a risk. I'm like, I want to do that. My mom said, don't do it. I saw what happened to you 40 years ago, the struggle you went through. If you start talking about it, reliving it, it might come back. I don't want to see you suffer again and again and again. My dad said, you make the choice, I'll back you either way. My son thought it was pretty badass. My daughter thought, oh, I'm uncomfortable, but if you think you'll enjoy doing it, that's cool. So, it's just, and again, I didn't want to raise my children as the ghost boy's child. I didn't even tell them what happened. I didn't tell my best friends. Nobody knew what happened until I went in sci-fi 30 years later. Even my best friends didn't know who I was. They heard about this kid, but they knew it was me. Like, no way. Wow. And the reason is because I didn't want my family to be victimized by that. So, for example, I would tell my children bedtime stories, fairy tales, unicorns and castles and things like that, and dragons. But in
lovely rainbows and everything.
Right, but yes, exactly. And in those stories, though, it's my experience. I just made those people, they problem solve for me in this moment. So if it happened to them, they can problem solve through it, but not be beholden to my experience and my viewpoint and my past. This way, they're prepared, but not indoctrinated. that's how I did. I ran that little fine line right there in the middle.
Oh, that's amazing. Sarah asked a question as well. So after you've left college, years have passed. Do you know if there's been any reported hauntings relating to your story or anything happening in that college? Have you ever gone back or, spoke to anyone to see if anyone else has had the similar experience to you?
It's a scary question to ask. It's kind of like if you had cancer, you go back for your screening every 6 months. Like, is it still okay? That kind of
Mm-hmm.
feeling. If you're the trepidatious. But I went back for the first time 25 years later. First time I spoke in public ever, and I took a tour of the area again. It was so strange. It seemed so quaint and nice and safe 25 years later than it did when we were living in there. But funny how that works. But only one person's come forward over the years to say that something happened, but they went into that room knowing the history of the room. The boyfriend and girlfriend wanted to provoke the ghost. They're saying bad things, doing bad things, to try to make things be, to challenge it and just
Yeah.
awful stuff. And he got sick and vomited, and she said she had a headache, and they broke up, and that was the end. That's the only thing that's ever happened. So good. I don't want to deprive people of experiencing things, but that thing was in pain, and if I was able to help it find some resolution, some rest from the agony, I'm glad that I did. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to, out of curiosity or to prove a point. I don't want to just wake it up again. It has to feel the pain. I hope wherever it is, it's good, that it's safe, that it finds some sense of peace. And I'm sure when I drop at some point in time, I'll be able to say hello again on my terms.
Yeah, on your turn, yeah, that'll be something. And going forward now, like you say, you don't like doing the ghost hunts. Is that because of the experience that you've gone through already? Like, because a lot of people love doing these events, and but is that just like a personal thing, or is that relating to what you've experienced?
If you had been walking down the street by a small stationery store with newspapers and magazines, tobacco products, things like that, lottery tickets, and you got jumped and beaten, and your eye socket got broken, and your shirt got torn, they stole your wallet, you broke your jaw, you don't want to go back there for quite some time. In fact, you
Mm,
know what? I don't want to ever go back there because it's a bad thought. That's kind of how it was for me. The assault was so severe, the trauma was so encompassing and widespread amongst all my family and friends. That's my experience, and so my lens is shaped by that horrific moment. So I don't have experience like that as a kid where I'm talking to a ghost saying, "Hey, how are you? Here's lotto numbers." I just, I didn't have that. I didn't have the opportunity to explore. It's kind of like your first boyfriend or girlfriend just goes after you, takes advantage, and leaves. It's a
yeah,
tough thing. You might want to avoid that for a while. So for me, I'm still fearful that things will want to attach to me and I'll bring them home.
yeah,
I'm still fearful that they'll focus on me for some reason, maybe some genetic component where it won't leave me alone. I don't want to risk that. So again, these are emotional thoughts. They're not necessarily logical thoughts, but this is the truth. And so I'm only of value if I speak the truth. If
yeah,
I lie and make things up, I have no credibility. Then there's nothing I can say to people. It means nothing, right? So I rather say things people might think, well, that's odd, or I don't like that idea, but that's the truth. And I think if people want to be open-minded and kind, they'll accept me for who I am, as I would them.
no, definitely. And
Yes, the stars are
yeah,
great.
the Sarah's have got some great questions coming up. So Sarah Guy, she's asked, was the room used after you left the college? So it must have drawn some attention, like especially with the
Yeah.
Netflix series coming out. Do they still use it as a normal dorm, or is that a room that's sort of closed off to potentially protect other people?
During the haunting itself, media showed up. Newspapers showed up. Newspapers, radio reporters would show up to talk to me, and I'd hide behind those big old-fashioned mailboxes outside on the streets. I'd hide behind them and say, so it was no moving back then. My father said to me, maybe change your room, get a different room, and that would solve the problem. But then I felt bad for who goes in the room after me, and they'd be attacked. I couldn't do that. So, yes, the year after the haunting, Jeff and I went to the building across the campus, and that room was used because at that time, it was more about the ghost boy than the room.
Mm,
This is my ghost, right? So the assumption people had was it would probably follow me if it was around, if it's my ghost, right? So I'd walk on the sidewalk, "Oh, that's the ghost boy, that's the ghost boy." Like you saw the show, that's what really happened, It was a very strange thing. Um, The room is still in use. Now it's very different. The cost itself doesn't say, look here, George Washington's up here. Look here, but the students love it. The students ask for that room. They ask for it. They want that room. There's a shrine there. On the wall, there's pictures of me and of the ghosts of the TV shows. And I walk in like, oh my gosh, it's like the Beatles. If I walk on the campus, people come out in their nightgowns and start swarming around me. It's the most amazing thing. On the street corners, I'm like the mayor up there, So it's well received by the people themselves. I get invited to all places. I get free sandwiches. Because it really puts them on the map a little bit around the globe. This kind of iconography is kind of cool. The school itself is like, it's not academic, but they don't really mind. But yeah, it's still there. It's there. Now it's more of an attraction. When I was there, it'd be a negative thing, like, ooh, don't talk about that. Now I talk to the alumni committee. I get to talk to the local places. It's nice. That's my home away from home, and the kids love it. So, and I go back and check every year. How you guys doing? You need help? You okay with things? They're bothering you? I mean, people, it's like stalkerish.
Yeah.
They appreciate that, I think, because I care about them.
Brilliant. And also, I just want to ask as well. You said about how traumatic it was, and and it took a lot for you to be able to come out to your family about what happened. But what made you want to speak out, like, publicly about your story? Like, not just with the Netflix documentary, but you also do public speaking as well. And that must have taken a big step for you to come out for so long, not talking about it, then suddenly come out and do the podcast, the show. What made you want to do that?
It's definitely a personal choice. I referred earlier on in our talk tonight about how my father wanted me to run. He had the stick. He chased me around with the stick. And I discovered I was really fast. I had this gift I didn't know I had. I noticed that I didn't like running still. People liked it. Oh, good job, Chris. I had more friends. My parents were proud. The school was happy. People talked about me in a positive way. I was in the paper. So I saw a positive effect all around me from my running. Same thing here. Whenever I speak at an event, people seem to really enjoy that. And they share their own experiences, and they want a picture with me, and they talk about the show itself, and we go places, and I bond with people, and we share ideas, and we make friends. So I do it because people seem to really enjoy it. And if I can give them value through experience, through discussion, I'm going to do it, because I didn't have that. About 3 years ago, I was walking in a Pennsylvania mall. Pennsylvania is like one state over. I was going to the mall shopping, and this guy looks at me, and he's looking, he goes, "Hey, you're the ghost boy, right?" I'm like, yeah. He goes, "Let me tell you something." He got really close to getting a big hug. I'm like, uh-oh, call the police. He's getting a big hug. Who's this guy, right? And he says, "I want to tell you, you're my hero." I'm like, "What? You're in the paper. I read about you as a teenager. I like Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, Mr. Spock from Star Trek, and you. I'd wrestle. I'd say, I am the ghost boy for my finishing move." I'm like, "No way." He goes, "Was it great?" And I explained to him, "No, it was horrible. But you know what, Nando? I always felt alone in that room, by myself, a freak, different. But there was some kid out there, hundreds of miles away, rooting for me and cheering for me, believing in me. And it taught me we're never truly alone unless we choose to be." And that was a big lesson learned years later.
That's amazing. What a way to put it as well. Sarah's asked another question. With the college itself, was the building always a college? Let me put that up, actually. Here we go. So was the building always a college? I know there was a lot of civil war around that area. What was the land where the college was before it was a college? American Indian land? Do you know any history of the land or what it was prior?
I actually do. Yeah, all these projects and shows have learned about the history of everything in the books and stuff. Yeah, so it was Native American land. It's called Little Beardstown, later Geneseo, and there are lots of warfare there, and battles took place there. When George Washington, our future president, numero uno, heard about the execution and torture of Thomas Boyd and Colonel Parker, he actually sent his troops to burn the whole place down. And they had to march up toward Fort Niagara, and most of them died. The Native Americans said, "Don't say his name, George Washington, because he'll come and find you in your sleep and kill you." That's how that moment affected history in my country. The British were actually helping to support Native Americans, saying we won't go past this certain line. The Patriots, the Americans, wanted more land. And so the Native Americans allied themselves with the British, with the Brits, as you would say, right? And so because the Native Americans allied with the side that didn't win the war, they were pushed out of their territory. Had Great Britain won that war and King George held fast over his rule over the colonies, but it'd been a different outcome. It's all speculative, but it did make a big difference. The school itself had been a woman's school, a ladies' school for refinement. So you take your young daughter to the school to learn how to sew, how to dress, how to speak, how to read, to refine them for a proper marriage back in the 1900s. Then it became a teacher's college. It became coeducational. Jeff's mother went to the college before we went there. I didn't even know that until just recently. And now it's a public education school for anybody who can get the grades and qualify to get in. It's a prestigious school up here. I'm very proud to say I went there and passed it. It's a beautiful town. The old ivy line walls and stuff, and little mom and pop shops in the street. I love going there. There's a place called Ink Cookie Sub Shop. I love going there back then and now. They have a sandwich called the Ghost Boy Special. I get it every time.
That's amazing, the Ghost Boy Special. Brilliant. I just wanted to quickly say, Colette, it's called True Haunting on Netflix, and it's episode 1, 2, and 3, and it's called Erie Hall, and that is the story of what Chris went through. Absolutely brilliant to watch. So, and it is still on Netflix now, so definitely go and have a watch if you haven't seen it already. Brilliant. Just to end off, because this has been an absolutely amazing chat, and there's so many different avenues we can take with it, but what's next for you, Chris? Like, have you got anything coming up, like more talks, or have you got anything that you want to do to like maybe a book or anything? I don't know if you thought about doing a book or...
Yes, actually, thank you for that. I'm bad at selling things. This is the book that I wrote. It's called The Ghost Story of Erie Hall. That's me at the toga party. About 10 minutes before I saw the ghost for the first time, when I was still innocent. It starts with that, and it's 400 pages. It goes through all the things that you see, all our backgrounds and things. And Raw Studios used a lot of my book in it before it's put out there. It was in raw form. Raw form, Raw Studios, very cool. Sorry. Anyway, to write their screenplay and create, they did create. So they're proud of that. I'll be going a lot of places. I'm doing a lot of events, especially over here in the States. No invitations from the UK yet. If you have anything over, let me know. I'll glad to come over and say hello.
If we can, we'll look into it. We know a lot of people around, so definitely get you in, because that would be amazing to have you come and speak in the UK. But I just want to say, thank you so much for sharing your story, like taking your time out of your day to have a chat with us. It's been absolutely brilliant, and it's always the show was great, but to actually speak to the person in question and hear it from you directly has been amazing. So I just want to say thank you so much for this evening or today.
Before we go, if you don't mind, I'm gonna be a very snooty guest.
Okay.
I'd say hello to either your wife or your kids. Or to be in the room in the place with you real quick. Can I make that?
Yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to shout. I'm going to use my big voice. Sarah, can you come down? Sorry, everyone. You hear my big voice go then.
I like meeting people. I like saying hello. I know it's not the normal thing. I know that's,
No, do you know what? It's so nice. But no, she's just coming. Chris would like to meet you.
Are we live?
Okay.
Yeah, we're live.
Makeup, I look awful.
Oh, don't be silly.
Hello.
Sarah.
Pleasure.
Big fan.
Yeah, we like I said, we've just spent the last few hours just watching all of the series again, haven't we? So
I think it's great how you love your family, how you love your kids, how you do these things. It's a nice team that you have, and I'm very blessed to know both of you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we just like you said, we value what we have, and that's like for me, Sarah, the boys, and that's what's important. But no, it's been. Al just says hi as well, But no, it has been absolutely brilliant to have a chat with you, Chris, and hear your story from your own perspective, and it's amazing what you've done, and and how you've helped people along the way. Because like you said, a lot of people feel that they're freaks in a way, and it's not normal, and you're giving them that voice to feel comfortable to speak. So thanks so much.
I appreciate that. So.
This would have made a great movie as well if you could have Hollywoodize it a bit. Probably wouldn't want to go down that route, but it would make a really good horror film.
As long as they treat my friends with kindness and try to have a positive message, I'll do anything because I want to leave a nice positive footprint before I go.
Yeah,
no, that's absolutely good. But you know, like I said, everyone, thank you everyone for who's joined us this evening. It's been a great first show back, you know, really, really great show. If you haven't seen True Hauntings, head over to Netflix. It's episode 1, 2, and 3, Erie Hall.
Yeah.
Definitely go and give it a watch. And, you know, it's something that really gets you thinking, and the avenues that you can go down with
Make
theories.
sure you've got a pillow to hide behind as well, because it
Yes,
is
always.
really scary.
It is a bit scary.
I think
But
no chances.
But what I'm going to do, I'm going to end it here this evening. Again, before I let you go, Chris, thank you so much for taking time out and sharing such a personal story with me, Sarah, and everyone that's viewed this evening. It's been
Thank
great.
you. It's been a real
And again, everyone that's joined in with their comments, you know, welcoming Chris and being so kind. Thank you so much to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will be back soon. But for now, we're going to log off and say goodbye to everyone. Thank you again.
Ciao for now.